Welcome in. We are back to a regularly scheduled podcast in our regularly scheduled places. Clayton, how's it going? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. A lot of good food. Had the cherry pie, my grandma's cherry pie. It was delicious. Some exciting football games too. I got to be honest. So very good, very good.
Some disappointing football games, I would say. Um, but the food was good, family was good, and everything else was great. I've been being tracked by snow across 3 different states as I made my way back home. It's just managed to follow me everywhere. So that I do love the snow. Not as fun to drive in, obviously, but got to see some cool places in certain parts of the country.
Yeah, heard you had a little adventure on what was that, Sunday night?
Sunday evening, yeah. I had to make
Wow,
a quick pit stop in a blizzard. So
crazy. Well, we're glad you made it through all the treacherous weather back
yep,
home.
yep. Wouldn't rather be anywhere else. But with that, we've got fantasy football to talk and just getting into the most exciting part of the year. Let's start doing that with some standings. All right, there is some more clarity going on here. I'll start at the top two. Not much has changed there except Lucas now has the number 1 spot locked up. He will be the 1 seed. I will be the 2 seed, kind of as we suspected the last 2 weeks or so. And then Casey and Tanner secured their spots this past weekend. Tanner went 2-0. I believe Casey went 1-1. And then I will let you go from there.
Yeah, so I went 1-1. Sam and Joey both went 0-2. I believe Bo went 2-0, which I think we might have to see Bo in the playoff race when we do our next podcast. There is a way he makes it. I did
There
look.
is.
Um,
I look too.
so sorry, Bo, for counting you out, but there is a way you make it. It's tough. You need some things to happen.
Yep.
Um, but you can do it. It's I'm gonna say there's some low odds there, but we will have Bo in the playoff graphic in the next episode.
Right. It's one of those that you always see at the end of the year in the actual season where there has to be 16 different outcomes for Bo to be in. But I just gotta say, it's an underdog story. I'm probably rooting for it. No offense to anyone else. Not trying to show any preferential treatment, but just for the story of it at this point, having wrongly ruled Bo out maybe 2 weeks ago, would love to see him sneak his way in over the last couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, I will say some of the stuff we're using is AI, and I
I
think
would caution that some of the stuff Clayton is using is AI. I'm strongly anti, and don't agree with it, and have had to fact check it multiple times. So
yeah. So next year I have some different ideas on how we can use it and how it can be a little bit more accurate. I think Bo did get some luck the last 2 weeks. He definitely got luck last week. He needed both Joey and Sam to go 0-2 last week to make this possible. I will say, if Bo makes the playoffs, it means I make the playoffs. So I'm kind of rooting for Bo too. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it would make it a little bit easier on you there. And then in terms of points, again, not much movement here. The only thing that's really noteworthy, in my opinion, well, there's a few things, but the biggest noteworthy thing is the run that Lucas has been on. He is now almost 200 points clear of second place, which is me. He's on a dang near historic run in our league. I think you had a number that was actually the top overall points that anyone scored in our scoring. I don't remember what the exact number was, but I know Lucas has a chance at it in the next week.
Yeah. So I think he needs to put about 190.
Oh,
Um, there
maybe
there
not.
was a crazy year. I kind of was talking about it in the group chat a little bit. I had to go back and look. I saw the run Lucas was on. I think he's had the most points for 6 of our 13 weeks, so almost 50% of the time. Um, Absolutely insane. I mean, it is a historic run. I will say the other year that it happened, that I think it was 1933 was the total. There was multiple other teams. Like I think Sam was up there with like 1926. I think you were up there with 1853. Like it must have been just a high scoring year because there was like three or four teams that were all up there a lot. So, in terms of gap, this might be the biggest gap between first and second in league history. I did not fact check that, but it has to be up there for sure.
It's got to be close. It's usually a battle, and it was fairly close between Lucas and I up until I would say last week. Last week he pulled away uh, pretty handily, and then this most recent week just widened that gap by some players that we'll talk about here in the next parts of the podcast. Other part I want to point out is Joey is number 3 in points and currently on the outside looking in for the playoffs. Not a fun place to be. Uh, Again, bad luck at the beginning of the year, but I never like to see someone who's gotten that high in points not make the playoffs. Doesn't feel quite right, but it is what happens when a lot of your high scoring games are so high and your low scoring games are so low.
Yeah, and I'll highlight one more thing. Tanner at 4 holds the 7th spot in points, which I mean I know seven's kind of right there in terms of the playoffs, but for him to lock down a playoff spot, um, being in 7th in points for with 1 week left is kind of shocking, and I think we can kind of understand why in the next couple slides.
Alrighty, and then the points against race. You'll see later that no one still has scored any points against Lucas really, and he is about 120 points shy of everybody else in that department. So no shade to Lucas. He has outscored everybody on any given week. It wouldn't change his record for people to be putting points up against him really at this point unless they were going insane. But just noteworthy. All right, Clayton, we've got some interesting stuff here for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Another little holiday treat for everyone, starting with the biggest discount of the season. And this one has to go to Tanner.
And this might be the biggest discount. I think you've mentioned this, maybe in league history. I don't know many other games that someone won scoring under 80 points. Um, it's a low number. I know I can't think of a time where I've won scoring where it starts with a 7 instead of at least an 8 or a 9. So biggest discount of the season goes to Tanner for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. I think over the last couple of years we've talked about, to get a head-to-head win in our league, you got to start hoping for about 100 points. And we always see plenty of wins under it, but to realistically say, oh yeah, I have a good shot at it, it's usually the threshold's about 100 points. So to be 20 under that, 20% of that below it is a pretty big discount. No discount goes to me. We talked about this one pretty early on in the season, where I remember it very clearly because it was my first loss of the year. I felt like I put up a great week, and then it was that Green Bay versus Dallas game where Dak put up like 50 for Sam on Sunday Night Football and just crushed my undefeated season. And then I think Cam Skydabu got hurt the next week. So it was a tough time that I don't like looking back on very much.
Yeah, this one, I mean, there was some people in the 120s with losses, but no one else in the 130s besides Ryan there.
Yep. All right, best bargain goes to Casey.
Yeah, Casey has 3 wins when scoring in the bottom 5. There was a couple other people with 2, but Casey's done it 3 times, so it's best bargain. I honestly was kind of surprised it wasn't Tanner, but yeah, Casey had 3.
Yeah, last week was one of them too. I think Casey won with 85, so he was pushing for the biggest discount as well. Um, yeah, after a hot start, just hasn't been getting it done points wise, but sometimes the record plays out just right. Worst
Yeah.
bargain is for Bo, and he's got 3 losses when scoring in the top 5, which is much more deflating than the last one. I remember a couple of these. One of them was against me. I know one of them was against Cub. I don't remember where the other one came in, and those were all very close losses. I remember the one to Cub was 3 points, and one to me was like 5. Um, so didn't even get like just unlucky and get hit by one of Lucas's 160 point weeks to just have no shot. They were all pretty close where he probably felt like he was having a good week and then just barely couldn't make the cut.
Yeah, and there was 5 people with 2. So I mean, the last two, the bargain stats are relatively close, but I mean, like you said, definitely more deflating to lose in the top 5 scoring than to win in the bottom 5 in scoring.
But a 1-1 week feels a whole lot better than an 0-1 week that we used to have on one of
Yeah,
those.
I definitely agree.
All right, got off early. This we talked about it. Lucas, 12 of 13 opponents have been in the bottom 5 of scoring for the week. I mean, I don't know how we even track this. This has to go to some data center in the middle of nowhere to go back and relitigate all of the years of fantasy football we've played. I'm just going to say that this is the record. There's no way. He's only had one person score against him in the top 5. And it was me. I'm going to take credit for that, and I hope to do it again this week. But it's ridiculous the amount of bad weeks that people put up against Lucas while he's scoring an exorbitant amount of points.
Yeah, I mean, you've been seeing it every week with the points allowed. I mean, he's 200 lower than the next closest guy, which means he's like 400 lower or 300, my bad. 300 lower than the top people, which, divide that by 13 doesn't seem like a lot, but it feels like a lot.
Well, 10, 15 points a week. I mean, that adds up pretty. 100 versus 85. That's a big difference.
No, definitely. Like I said, when you think, well, it's only like 200 divided by 13 is not a crazy big number, but like you said, I mean, 100 versus 85, that feels like a big difference.
Yeah. Or even 115 versus 100 nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then working overtime is me and Sam trying to grind out these wins. We've had 9 opponents in the top 5. We're both very near. I know I am actually right now. It's very close, but I'm the top points against. I think Sam is
Third.
very
He's in
close
third
behind
place.
third. Um, but each week going against some tough opponents. So hats off to you guys. I feel like I've been able to handle it pretty well. Sam is more struggling a bit more, trying to fight for one of those last 2 playoff spots. But the fact that he's even in it, hats off.
Yeah, and I will highlight the person with the second most points allowed is Bo, who is in that worst bargains category. So, um, you know, unluck is showing in 2 different ways there, but unlucky nonetheless.
Unlucky. Alrighty, and we're gonna keep it rolling. We got a whole lot of these coming your guys' way. So, for most purchases, I'm gonna leave this one to you.
Yeah, that'll be me. I think in all the years I tend to lead the category. I love to tinker. I love to add and drop. I love to use that kicker spot as an extra bench spot. So, that definitely comes into play. I didn't make quite as many trades this year as I did last year, but when you count trades and added players, I do have the most at 57. I will say we did have some people with 3 trades. Actually, you, Lucas, and Scott all had 3 trades. So if we were just doing, trades, you guys would be the most. But since we included the added and the dropped, that'll be me with 57.
I was
Which
pretty surprised that you only had 2 trades. honestly, when
Yeah.
that number popped up. I thought you had more.
No, but I think it was like 2 of the first weeks, and then didn't really get a deal done after that.
Interesting. Interesting. And then biggest spender. The Sharks are back in the water.
Yeah, there's blood. There's blood in the water again with this one. Obviously Trey Benson on IR, which might have kept him out of the worst deal, just because we hate to highlight injuries in a bad light. We do. So we kind of put this one at biggest spender, Tanner, with a big 145 out of 150 on Trey Benson. Hopefully Trey Benson plays this week and can finish the season out strong, but
He is back on
there is a
Tanner's
worse.
roster, by the way.
Yeah,
To highlight
he is
that.
on Tanner's roster, which kind of kept him out of the worst deal. And like I said, we don't like to highlight injuries in a bad light on this podcast, so did kind of keep him out of worst deal. But I know some people would maybe question that could have been the worst deal.
Yeah, I think if we were going to have a second biggest spender, it would have been my potential bid on Trey Benson, which I think was 130, 140, something like that. I put a lot of money on Trey Benson, and I could not be happier that I didn't get him.
Yeah, I think the next actual one that went through was Scott's bid on Wilson a couple weeks ago was $65. So
Right.
145 is obviously huge compared to the 65.
Yeah. Alrighty, and then speaking of Scott, he had the most missed deals missed. 22 lost bids. That's a lot of players to be tinkering with on your waiver wire each night, every Tuesday night, and then for it to not go through, got to be a little frustrating.
Yeah, so I believe this one only counts if you like lost a bid to someone else. I know when you look at the offers report, like there's people that put in too many. I do this all the time. They put in more bids than they can actually receive. So I believe this is, just tracking the lost bids to other people. This is an ESPN stat, not a ChatGPT stat. Um, so I do believe it a little bit more than the AI stuff. But
Probably
yeah,
got it right.
22 bids. The next closest guy was Cub with 17. So that's 5 more, which is brutal. That's almost. I mean, you're almost looking at 2 a week there for Scott.
Right. Yeah. Man. All right. What else do we got? We've got biggest saver, who's still sitting on some cash. Would be
Yeah.
Joey, $86, just waiting. He might be the shark now, just kind of sitting back there waiting to make his move when somebody goes down. He's got to be saving that money for something.
Yeah, there is 3 guys relatively close. You were in third with $75, and Sam's in second with $76. But Joey's still having 86. Joey does like to make some moves, but he does believe in his players most years. Um, Obviously, he made a big trade that maybe could be talked about in our next little bullet point. But to keep $86 through 13 weeks, I think is pretty impressive. I know I'm at zero, one of the worst spenders. You have Tanner at zero as well. Obviously, he spent most of his money on one guy. And then Casey at $1, Lucas at $5 is the other 2 people that have been spending a lot of their money.
All right, yeah, I know Lucas spent some money on Amari and Hampton recently when I was shooting for him too, and that's one I wish I kind of would have put a little bit of higher bid in at this point. All right, best deal of the season goes to Tanner. So not all negative for Tanner, surprisingly.
No, I mean when you spend 145 on one player, you got to be creative with the $0. And I'll hand it to Tanner here. We talked about a couple different options here, but Jake Ferguson being tight end 2, Tanner getting him for $0 is probably the best deal of the season. Arguably, there's some defenses in there that people got for pretty cheap, and then you mentioned the Joey trade to get Genty for DK Metcalf, which was talked about. That was probably in the running for second place, I would say. But he did. I mean, he did technically have to give up more than
Montgomery
nothing.
as
So
well, yeah.
yeah, that's why that one, like I said, is not the best deal of the season.
Yeah, it was close. And then finally the worst deal of the season. I mean, it had to come back. It had
Yeah.
to.
So I will say this one was close too. Um, we did already mention the Trey Benson stuff. I spent, I think it was 36 or 38 on Ramondre Stevenson to be on my team for like 1 or 2 weeks. He did actually start for me and score a little bit more points than Dylan Sampson when Dylan Sampson was on Sam's roster, so that's why this one edges it out. But $40 on a guy who pretty much did nothing for your team is tough, and it's with Sam still having $76 left, it's a big
Almost
chunk
more
of
than
what
50.
he
Well,
spent.
yeah, about 50%
Yeah.
of what he spent.
So we're gonna have to give this one worst deal of the season. But that's kind of our fun little Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Me and Hannah did take advantage of a deal and upgraded the washing machine. So um, I
Fancy.
I tend to take advantage of the deals when I can. Um, I like to spend money in multiple ways, obviously in fantasy football and in real life, which you gotta be careful with. But if it's a good deal, it's a good deal.
Yeah, you've been a big spender. I will say one thing. If you had started Dylan Sampson 2 weeks ago, would have been a good start. I think he had like a 60-yard touchdown. So,
Yep.
might be some new potential there. All right, let's get into some matchups. Um, so last of week 13, first game being Bo and Cub. You and I both picked Bo. This is one of the reasons he's still in the running. He didn't even go 2-0, did he? He would have had to have been bottom five in points with 91. And I think he did have 9 wins last week. So if he would have gone 2-0, if he would have gotten a few more points, and correct me
No,
if I'm
he
wrong
was
at some
he
point.
was the fifth spot. We had a 75 and 80, 75 and 85, a 69 and 83, a 77.
Oh wow, bad week. All right, never mind. Bo got 2-0 with 91 points. So we'll give him that one. Uh, Keeps himself alive for the playoffs. Really on the back of Jamison Williams, who is going to be a stud for 1 to 2 weeks with Amon Ra out, which we'll talk more about in a bit. Some really disappointing weeks from other players on his team that had been very reliable up to this point. Stafford had his first really bad game. I don't know if it was of the year, but at least in about 10 weeks. Um, Gibbs didn't do much. Barkley is not going to do much for the rest of the year. And the rest of his team, Abuka has just fallen off after this really hot start with Baker being hurt, and I think with getting a lot more attention from the opposing defenses. Um, so yeah, tougher week for Bo, but was able to sneak out at 2-0. So that's all that matters in the end.
Yep. Looking at this matchup, to me, both quarterbacks not doing quite as well. Josh Allen's actually the number one quarterback in average points per game. Stafford's three, both above 22 points. It's 24 for Allen, above 24, and Stafford's above 22. So usually you're expecting those guys to score some points. Neither of them really did. When you look at Cubs team, Justin Jefferson, the quarterback play for Minnesota has been terrible, and Justin Jefferson is unfortunately we thought was quarterback proof is apparently not quarterback proof. I mean that situation is really tough there, especially for those playmakers in that offense. I know Jordan Addison is a pretty good wide receiver, but currently available in our league because of that quarterback play. Outside of really, Sutton and Brandon Aubrey, he tough weeks. I mean, even the Texans D with four. They did play Colts, but with the hurt Daniel Jones, you thought maybe they could still score. Woody Marks with seven. I think he kind of got banged up a little bit, and then Kenneth Walker. That Seattle backfield is just tough if you own either of those guys. I own them in a different league. I actually own them both, and it's it's
It's hard to
just
play
it's
either
tough
of them.
because yeah, if one of them was the bell cow, you're probably looking at a low RB1 at least. I mean, maybe high RB2. I mean, definitely high RB2 at least, but because they both split so much, and you can't ever tell who's going to score, who's not going to score, who's going to break a run, who's not going to break a run. It's definitely a tough backfield to own.
Yeah, and Cope was already cemented out of the playoffs last week. Um, so he was just playing spoiler. Couldn't do it quite this week. I don't know who he's got coming up this next week, but maybe he'll have a shot to mess up somebody else's season here. Alrighty. Then we've got Casey and Scott. And Scott continues his really kind of pitiful run to end the season here. 69 points, spearheaded by, well, poorest performance from the Lions defense. Green Bay's offense hadn't been playing well. I don't know what to say. They managed to throw, I think Jordan Love threw 4 touchdowns against that defense. Scott had one player get above 13 points in Nico Collins, and just did not get out of the double digits for most players, which is a similar story for quite a few of the last few weeks.
Yeah, I will shout out Scott. We missed him on our last episode. I believe he was working on Thanksgiving during that Lions Green Bay game. So shout out Scott. Did not have Thanksgiving off, and he was out there working. So appreciate Scott for what he
Best of
does.
us.
But really tough week in fantasy, and honestly a tough week for Casey too. I'm not gonna let that be lost. I mean, just because he got the win, you look like ETN with 3, Dowdle with 8, and now I don't know, did Dowdle all of a sudden lose the job? Look like Chuba was kind of cooking there for
Yeah.
him. Theo Johnson, I think, had 10 targets in that New England game and barely caught any of them. Devontae Adams and Chase were bright spots, sure. Um, Myers was a bright spot, sure. I mean, that's kind of why he won. His kicker put up 19, which is absolutely nuts. But Herbert with 14, and now the injury there. Who knows if he's going to play? I know Casey's got like 5 quarterbacks on his bench, so I think he'll
He's
be
got a few
okay.
options.
But the running backs, and then Diggs with 4, Falcons with only 1, and a loss to the Jets is brutal. And then, like I said, Theo Johnson had a ton of targets and just couldn't pull him in against the Patriots.
Yeah, Devontae Adams has been a touchdown machine. He's really been Casey's saving grace these last couple of weeks. It seems like every time they get within the 5, they're looking just to let Devontae Adams run a fade, run a slant, do whatever he wants. We're throwing him the ball. So I think Casey's team can turn it around a little bit. That I will say that Derrick Henry, I guess it was Addison that he sent over, which hasn't been great. But essentially Derrick Henry for ETN and Diggs, that trade that he made with Lucas, I'm leaning more and more on the Henry side every week of that one, watching Travis Etienne play.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Diggs has had some good weeks. ETN had a good week last week, so it's close. But definitely this week you would definitely lean towards Derrick Henry.
Speaking of Derrick Henry, he is on Lucas's team. We both picked Lucas for a good reason. He was projected about 50 points to start the week. He outscored it anyway. On the back of a 40 bomb from Seattle's defense against the aforementioned pitiful Vikings quarterbacking. Doesn't matter. Apparently it's changed from doesn't matter who Kevin O'Connell trots out there, they're going to score good points to now Kevin O'Connell has met his match in some of the worst quarterbacks to ever make it to the NFL. They had at least one touchdown to get to 40. I was actually not able to watch most of the game, but had to have been a few picks. I'm assuming there was near double-digit sacks mixed in there. And then from the rest of Lucas's team, McCaffrey, Henry, you go down the line. Rashee Rice had 2 touchdowns. Everyone's in double digits. Everyone's above. All of his skill players are above 12 points at the lowest. And most guys, the rest of the guys, 13, 18, whatever it is. they're all mid-teens. That makes for a great week, and then you get the one pop-off from a defense, which hopefully he won't be able to rely on every week because that is the last thing that Lucas needs is some defense that can get him 20 points even. Uh, but yeah, congrats, Lucas.
Yeah, crazy stat here. Everybody but the kicker on Lucas's team scored a touchdown in one way or the other, either throwing, catching, or running.
I'm surprised they didn't throw one to
Absolutely
Fairbairn.
ridiculous. The defense had 4 interceptions to go along with 4 sacks and a touchdown, as well as the shutout, which was absolutely huge. McCaffrey ran one in, Henry ran one in, Olave caught one, Rice caught two, McBride caught one, and Brees Hall ran one in. Hurts through two. So absolutely electric stuff from Lucas's team. Moving on to Joey's team, we talked about Daniel Jones and how maybe he shouldn't start him. He did put up 18, which I mean I would have taken the under on that probably. Based on what I heard about the injury news, based on his fact he's playing Houston. Houston's defense is rough. I would have taken that 9 times out of 10. Jalen Warren, he did fine. Cook did fine. He had a good game in that kind of ugly Buffalo Pittsburgh game.
Yep.
JSN didn't even need to be used because that defense was so good. Troy Franklin, kind of disappointing. Interesting game in Denver with or it was in Washington, but Troy Franklin plays for Denver. With only 3 points, that game went into overtime. Denver barely squeaks it out against a Mariota-led, 3 and at the time 8 Commander team. Brock Bowers had a good week. Genty kind of did okay. Ravens with a tough loss against Cincinnati. That team just doesn't look right to me.
Yep.
So, the wide receiver position obviously hurting Joey this week, but I mean it's tough to score more than 162.
Yeah, Joey was really fighting for just getting in the top 5 in points this week, and in a really crucial week for him, wasn't able to do it. Was just barely on the outside looking in. So he's got biggest week of the year coming up. He needs to go 2-0, and we will talk about that more on Thursday. But for now, or Sunday probably. But for now, next matchup, I was able to get a little bit back on track this week. It does look, unfortunately, like our video here has the wrong matchup. But we'll have to go a little bit off of the top of the head here. So don't pay attention to the screen. I got big weeks out of Patrick Mahomes and Bijan Robinson. Mostly, I think they combined for about 60 between the two of them. A little bit over 60. And then just some solid performances out of the rest of my lineup from Marvin Harrison. Jonathan Taylor got 12. Again, was held out of the end zone. Travis Kelce got 13. To take me over the top of Sam's pretty bad week as well.
Yep. I gotta admit, the slide video, that's on me. It's late. We're filming right now. It's 11 o'clock. On a work night, so might have accidentally deleted one or forgot to add one.
It happens.
But yeah, Ryan won 126-77 against Sam, and again a crucial week for Sam. Him going 0-2, like I said, opens the door for Bo and keeps it open for Joey. Dak and Devon Achane were the only 2 real performers in Sam's lineup. Tyron Tracy did not have a good week against New England. Puka in a loss to the Carolina Panthers only had 9. Zay Flowers was 0. Hunter Henry was relatively quiet. He had a touchdown get called back, had 7. Pittman with 1. I mean, just a rough week for Sam, putting up 77 when he needed to probably go 1-1. Or I think if he went 2-0, he would have guaranteed himself a spot in the playoffs. I would have to go back and check. I mean, obviously with Joey going 0-2, the 2-0 would have made it happen. But tough week outside of Achane, who performs. I think he could put up 20 no matter what team he played for. And then Dak is having a pretty solid year this year. I mean, he's quarterback number 6 right now, so pretty solid year there. But yeah, big week for you, Ryan. Getting back on track with the 126 is huge.
Yeah, needed that one to build some momentum into what will be a highly anticipated matchup this coming week. All right, and then game of the week. I'm letting you start.
Yeah, so this one's tough. Lost Amon-Ra St. Brown in like the first 2 or 3 drives. I think with healthy Amon-Ra St. Brown, I win this week. I go 2-0, and I'm the one locking up the playoff spot instead of Tanner. But it is what it is. Injuries happen. Tanner said it is football, and I agree. But when you've had as many injuries as I had, you get pretty sick of them pretty fast. And so was sick to see that. Also, if looks like he's trending not to play this week, which in a week that I need to go 1-1 definitely hurts with the San Francisco 49ers and the Patriots on bye. So brutal stuff there. I will say Drake May is a stud, rocking the Reds like they did on Monday night and absolutely beat a team they should beat by a lot of points. People said that we were playing a little dirty. I think we were just playing tough football, but truth be told, saw a lot of Giants fans on Twitter, complaining about certain things, and I made a meme. I should have probably put it on the podcast, but it was a Giants fan handing Roger Goodell some flags, kind of hinting at the fact that maybe the Giants want to play flag football, or the Giants fans want the NFL to be flag football. So, to each their own. Solid week from Chase Brown. He looks much better now that he has better quarterback play. Judkins, I would like to see him get in the end zone one of these times, but if he continues to get as many touches as he is, he's kind of like a low floor kind of guy, or a high floor guy is what I meant to say there. CD back on track. It looks like he can catch the ball again, which is good for me. George Kittle, solid week. I'll take anything more than 5 out of a tight end. Honestly, 7, 8, 9, anything double digits, I'm thrilled with. Travion was kind of surprised there. Still averaging a lot more yards per carry than Ramondre Stevenson, but Ramondre is definitely getting more of the carries than Henderson was. Rams defense absolutely disappointed me this week, losing to Carolina and allowing 31 points to the Bryce Young-led Carolina Panthers that I admit are a little bit hotter as of late. And then Andy B, 2 kicks, man. Missed one from 45 that just, I don't know, knuckleball out of the foot there, and then he made an extra point doing the exact same thing, or maybe it was a short field goal. I think it was a short field goal now that I say that, but like little knuckler, and I didn't love him at the start of the season. I was starting to really love him, and the last 2 kicks he had weren't great, so a little nervous. Luckily, with him on bye this week, there's no question I will not be playing him. So, but I think with the healthy Amon-Ra, I beat Tanner, and I'm sticking with that.
I'd probably agree with you there. Luckily, with your kicker there, somehow neither of those kicks were the worst one of the night. That got claimed by Young Wei Koo, who
Can you call that a kick, though?
he can never set foot on a football field again. He shouldn't. They should cut him on the plane ride home. You can't kick the ground. I saw something where he was saying that he kicked the ground on purpose. Don't care what he has to say. I don't like to call for people's jobs, but he shouldn't be allowed back on the field for the Giants. On the winning side for Tanner, the scary thing, he has to bench Lamar Jackson, I think. I just don't think you can play him anymore. And every week he trots him out there, and every week it seems like halfway through the Ravens game, he is begging the Ravens coaching staff to bench Lamar themselves so that he won't have to make the decision for his own fantasy team. But only 5 points in a game. They were trailing the whole time. You would think they would have to pass. Did nothing. Was really disappointing. But did get some big weeks out of the players right after that. So both of his running backs over 15. RJ Harvey with his first real week as the lead guy in Denver. Looked really good. A.J. Brown got in the end zone twice, got over 100 yards. That was nice to see for, well, I hated seeing it because I hate the Eagles. But good to see for just general offensive football. And that really propelled Tanner to where he needed to be. Ladd and Jake Ferguson didn't do anything special. I think Ladd actually did get in the end zone, or else he would have had a really poor day there.
Yeah, I will say with RJ Harvey, he only averaged 2.7 yards a carry. He did get 2 touchdowns in a very close shocking game to me. I put RJ Harvey as having the over in his rushing yards on a prize pick prop because I thought the Broncos were gonna come out and cream a team that is 3-8 going to the game with a backup quarterback. But like it seems like every game this year, Denver likes to keep it close and exciting for their fans. But RJ Harvey with 2 touchdowns there, only averaging 2.7 yards a carry was a killer. But the real killer was AJ Brown with 30. After Thursday, I was feeling really good, and then after Friday, I was not feeling quite as good.
Yeah, those long touchdowns are killers. Alrighty, so with that, again, we got to change this eventually to say week 13 picks. But we both went 4-1 this week. We had the same picks. We were both close to 5-0 weeks. We were pretty close. And again, like you said, if Amon-Ra doesn't get hurt, then we both go 5-0 here, we think. But still maintaining that 2-game gap going into the final week of the regular season.
Yeah.
Regular fantasy football season, I should say.
Yeah, need myself to win this week. I played Bo. I think one win pretty much locks me up into the playoffs. So need myself to win this week. I haven't decided what I'm gonna do there in terms of pick 'em. We had some luck picking against myself for a little while. Had some luck picking with myself for a little while. So be interesting to see the picks this week. I'm also curious about a couple games Ryan will pick next week in particular. But,
Oh, I can promise you right
look
now,
at that
I'm
in the
myself
next
over
episode.
Lucas. I can guarantee you that.
Okay.
So if that's one of the ones you're curious about, there's one.
That is. There's another one too that I'm sure we will talk about in our next episode, and I'll leave it at that.
Perfect.
Because I think
Yeah. We
we
can't spoil it too much.
Yeah, we can't give anything away. We got we got the waivers tonight, which I have no money, but I got like 11 bids in or something like that, going crazy here trying to figure out my flex and kicker. And luckily I picked up Burrow, and he seemed to look okay, so I think he can hold it down for me at quarterback, but I'll have to double check that matchup.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of cash left. I got my eyes on a couple of guys too. So see how those work out. But other than that, nice little long episode tonight to get us back on schedule. Good luck on the waivers, boys, and we'll be back with you on Sunday morning.
Love it.
All right, Clayton. Well, we're out.
Oh, yes.